Daniel stood by the car, wiping the windshield with care. His wife, Amara, adjusted her blouse as she walked down the front porch steps of their modest but cozy home. It was Saturday family outing day. Daniel unlocked the car doors, and Amara walked toward the front seat. But then came Mummy Stella. Without a word, she opened the passenger door and sat down. Amara froze. She smiled tightly and stood there for a second, unsure of what to do. She looked at Daniel. Daniel looked between them, confused. Mummy, maybe you should sit at the back, so Amara can. I'm your mother, Mummy Stella said, her voice cold, cutting. Are you now putting your wife before me? Amara sat quietly in the back seat as they drove to the restaurant. Mummy Stella spoke loudly and often, cutting into Daniel's stories, dismissing Amara's suggestions. Daniel tried to balance both women, but his silence only fed the tension. Amara's eyes shimmered, but she swallowed her frustration. Back home, Amara couldn't hold it in. She disrespected me, Daniel. You saw it. She's my mother, Amara. I can't just. She's not your wife. The words hung in the air like thunder. In the guest room, Mummy Stella called her sister on the phone. She's turning him against me. Imagine. Me, who carried him for 9 months. She wiped a tear from her cheek, anger burning behind her eyes. Days passed. Daniel and Amara barely spoke. Mummy Stella acted like nothing happened, watching TV, cooking for her son, ignoring Amara. The house was heavy with unspoken tension. Daniel finally said, I'm sorry, I should have handled it better. But Amara wasn't ready to hear it. She humiliated me, and you let her. I was scared of disrespecting her. And now, you've disrespected me. One day, Amara found a photo album on the floor. Inside were pictures of Daniel as a child, and Mummy Stella, smiling wide, working 2 jobs to raise him alone. That night, Amara cried, not just from pain, but from understanding. The next morning, Amara made breakfast. She invited Mummy Stella to sit. I want peace in this house, she said. But I need to be respected too. Mummy Stella raised an eyebrow. I'm not trying to take your son from you, Amara added. But I need a husband. Not just a son to his mother. Later that week, Mummy Stella sat in the front seat again. This time, Amara tapped her gently and smiled. Mummy, I'll sit there today. Let me hold his hand like you used to. Mummy Stella paused. Then, slowly, she got out and went to the back. No drama, just peace. The morning sun beamed gently across the street. Birds chirped in the distance, and Mummy Stella stood by the passenger door with her purse in hand, dressed in her best lace. But Amara was already seated there, arms folded, gaze steady out the window. Daniel stood between them, car keys dangling awkwardly in his hand. Daniel, Biko, open this door, Mummy Stella said, her tone low but pointed. It's Sunday. Let's not start. Amara didn't shift. I was here first, Mama. If it means that much, maybe we can rotate next Sunday. Mummy Stella's lips thinned, her eyes glistening with the ache of silent battles she had fought for her son's comfort. This wasn't just about claiming a seat, it was about reclaiming respect. So that's how it is now? She murmured. Your wife comes first before me? Daniel, now visibly sweating despite the cool breeze, glanced around nervously as a few neighbors peeked from their balconies. Mama, please, Amara didn't mean it that way. But Amara turned her head slightly and said, soft but firm, actually, I did. Respect goes both ways. The tension curled in the air like smoke, heavy and choking. A horn from behind startled them all, snapping the moment in two. Daniel sighed and reached to open the back door for his mother. But she didn't move. If I can't sit beside my own son, Mummy Stella said coldly, then maybe I don't belong in this car. And with quiet dignity, she turned, stepped back into the compound, and shut the gate behind her. Daniel stood frozen. Amara didn't say a word. As they drove off, the silence in the car was deafening. One seat empty, but a wound freshly opened. Later that evening, Amara sat on the living room couch, scrolling mindlessly through her phone but reading nothing. Daniel came in, loosened his tie, and sat across from her. "We need to talk," he said flatly. Amara looked up, her eyes tired but unflinching. "Yes, we do. She's my mother," Daniel began. "She raised me with nothing. Now I have something, and you expect her to sit in the back like she's some house girl." "I never said that," Amara snapped. "But I am your wife, Daniel. When you made me a priority at the altar, did you think I'd always play second to your mother?" Daniel shook his head. "This isn't about ranking. It's about respect. The front seat doesn't define your place in my life. But to her, it does." Amara stood now, pacing. "Every day she's here, it's like I'm auditioning to be your wife. She questions how I cook, how I dress, even how I speak to you. She's old-fashioned. She's undermining me." Silence fell again. Upstairs, behind her closed door, Mummy Stella sat with her back to the wall, listening. Her hands trembled. She wasn't oblivious. She knew her presence had become a battlefield. She clutched her late husband's picture from the small bag she carried everywhere. "If only you were here." Then she heard something, quiet sobs. Not hers. Not Daniel's. Amara's. And that broke her. Mummy Stella stood up and made her way downstairs. As she opened the door, both Daniel and Amara turned in surprise. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I never meant to divide your home." The room fell still. Amara wiped her eyes. Daniel stared, stunned. But nothing else was said. Not yet. The next morning, Amara woke to the smell of boiling yam. Not her doing. She wrapped her robe and tiptoed downstairs. In the kitchen, Mummy Stella was bent slightly over the stove, wearing her wrapper and scarf, carefully flipping yams in a shallow pan. Daniel sat at the dining table, watching silently. "Good morning," Amara said softly. Mummy Stella turned, a gentle smile tugging at her lips. "Good morning, my daughter." It wasn't just the words. It was the tone. For the first time, "my daughter" didn't sound like an obligation. It sounded like an invitation. They ate together that morning. Quietly. No accusations. No corrections. Just three people trying. Later that week, Amara came home from work to find the front seat empty. Mummy Stella was already in the car, waiting in the back. Daniel stood outside, looking guilty. "She insisted," he said quickly, rubbing the back of his neck. Amara opened the front door and turned to look at his mother. "Mummy, you don't have to do that. The front seat is not a throne. It's just a seat." Mummy Stella smiled gently. "Yes, but peace? Peace is a throne. And I'm tired of fighting." Tears filled Amara's eyes, but she blinked them away. From that day, something shifted. Not perfectly, but purposefully. Mummy Stella began helping Amara in the kitchen without taking over. She gave advice without criticism. Amara started inviting her to women's prayer meetings, showing her off proudly as "my mother-in-law." Daniel noticed, quietly thankful but wisely silent. One Sunday after service, as they approached the car, Daniel stood still, unsure what to do. Amara chuckled. "You're both not fighting me for this seat today?" Mummy Stella opened the back door and winked. "We've moved past that war, my dear." They all laughed. As the car pulled out of the church compound, Daniel glanced at the mirror. His mother smiling softly at the back, his wife glowing beside him. No words were spoken, but in that silence, healing had found its home.